Good morning, honey.
Good morning.
Again, thank you for all your chapter now 7 today.
Yeah, this is a tough one because the sad truth is there's more wrong teaching about the book of Revelation in the churches than there is correct. We've just in our time of marriage, we've been to 10 or 20 churches. And in my time of ministry over 40 years, but in the last 40 years, I've been to hundreds of churches. And I can honestly say I'm not sure I've been to one that's gotten everything right. Teachers of the scriptures are supposed to be held to a higher standard.
Yeah.
And
True.
if you're teaching something, the people that are receiving it are properly and rightly thinking it's the truth. So a teacher cannot teach unless he knows that he knows that he knows.
Yeah.
And as I've said before, when I started teaching 30 years ago, never once has God corrected me or revealed to me anything that was wrong, because I don't teach something until I am absolutely sure through the Holy Spirit that it's right. But that's not the way that the church works today. They don't look to the Bible, they look to doctrine. And chapter 7 is full of misconceptions about the Bible. Chapter 7 has to do with the first chapter that deals with the 144,000 and who they are and what they are and why they are. But then along into chapter 14 of Revelation, they're mentioned again, and it goes into a little greater detail about this 144,000. Now, prior to the mentioning in chapter 7 of the 144,000 in the first few verses, we have some very important things. We have, behold, a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and him with him 144,000. So the first thing we do is we say, well, when is this? Well, this is Christ has returned.
Yeah.
So there's a key here. The chapter starts with a then,
Yeah.
rather than an after these things.
Yeah.
So a then is, okay, I looked to the east and I saw a tree. Then I looked to the west and I saw a bush. All right. Now, they could be in linear chronological, or if you're in a dream,
Yeah.
and I see this and then I see this, we don't know if they're simultaneous or if it's one after the other, or if the more important one was talked about first, even though it happens later. And then I looked over here in a less important vision, but it happens first, even though they were in reverse order. So you have to be careful in the book of Revelation. After these things always means that it comes after. But when you go, then I looked and behold, it's just another vision, and we don't know its timing. So obviously the first 6 chapters give us a sense of some linear chronological progression. It's the opening scene of the whole beginning of it, and then after that we have the letters to the churches, which clearly comes next in his vision. And the letters to the churches were back then because they were the 7 physical churches at the time of John. After that, we have the releasing of the 4 horsemen, the beginning of the death of martyrs, which began with Stephen at the time of the book of Acts. So that's the beginning of the church age. Martyrs began. There's an old founding father, Justin Martyr, who literally was a martyr back in the 2nd or 3rd century, I think it was. So now we're coming up into this next one here. And the 144,000 are sealed before the wrath begins, sometime as Christ is either coming down, or this is a vision of a symbol of Mount Zion, and that Christ and Mount Zion are given symbolically because that's going to be his new throne. The question is, when do the 144,000 get sealed? If God says he's going to do it, it's already done. And that's the way the Hebrew language was written, that there's only he did it, or if he says he's going to do it, it's already done. It's in a perfect tense, they say. So this could very well be a vision of what will be accomplished, but it has not yet happened in the progression of the book of Revelation. The rebellion of Lucifer in heaven obviously happened before creation, because he was a fallen angel in the garden already.
Yeah.
But he was created as a perfect angel, and there was a rebellion in heaven. But all of that happened before creation, outside of time.
Yes.
So a lot of this stuff is very hard for a physical mind to understand, how we're seeing it something as if it had been accomplished, Jesus standing on Mount Zion, but it obviously hasn't yet for us, and it may not have already happened at chapter 7. It's a future vision even for its position in the Bible. So getting into the 144,000, here is something else that's interesting. It says in verse 4, 144,000 of all the tribes of the children of Israel. But the listing of these 12 tribes is different from the biblical Old Testament listing of them. Our understanding in the Old Testament was that it was Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher, Issachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Manasseh, and Ephraim. So not Joseph. He wasn't one of the 12 tribes. All right, but here we have Judah, Reuben, Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Manasseh, Simeon, Levi, Issachar, Zebulun, Joseph, and Benjamin. And the 2 tribes that are not on that list are Dan and Ephraim. And Dan and Ephraim are mentioned all through the Old Testament as tribes of Israel. So Dan and Ephraim are not on the list in the book of Revelation. Levi is.
Okay.
So who has been left out are Dan and Ephraim. And so commentators have been troubled by this for a long time, but let me offer up a solution that's, I understand, is the truth, even though it's never been taught this way, that I can find out. In 1 Kings, there's the story of the 2 golden calves that are made during the dual kingdom. And it says here, after seeking advice from his counselors, the king made 2 golden calves and said to the people, going up to Jerusalem is too much trouble for you. So, you can't go up there to the annual feasts. Here, O Israel, are your gods, who brought you up out of the land of Egypt. 1 golden calf he set up in Ephraim, and the other in Dan. This thing became a sin. The people walked as far as Dan to worship before one of the calves. It's the only thing I can come up with out of the entire Bible where Dan and Ephraim are described as doing something bad, and to have literally done something to replace the temple of God. If you think about it, that is all false religion. We replace Jesus, which is literally the temple of God, if you will, with other gods. And so this was something that God said, that when I restore Israel, I can't bring them in with me. And so the list of people, a list of tribes in the book of Revelation shifts back from Ephraim, who was one of Joseph's sons. He loses it, so guess what? Joseph gets put back in. Joseph is listed as one of the 12 tribes in the book of Revelation, but nowhere is he listed as one of the 12 tribes in the Old Testament. So that is a powerful message to Christians. Think about that. Once saved, always saved. Didn't apply to Jerusalem or to Israel. So chances are it might not apply to Christians.
Yes.
All right, so now the whole thing of why 144,000. Again, this is something that you've got to get into the mysticism of Judaism to really understand. The number 12 is symbolic of divine government.
12 apostles. 12 apostles.
12 apostles.
12 tribes.
12 tribes. And they were supposed to be divinely governed by God, and they would divinely govern the people. So 12 is the number of divine government. And 1,000 is representative, 1,000 and 10,000, myriads and thousands of thousands, just means a lot of them. So this might not be 12,000 were sealed from Judah, 12,000 were sealed from Reuben. This might not be a literal 12,000 people. This might just be a lot from each tribe. And again, here I'm qualifying it because as a teacher, I have to understand that there are some things that just aren't revealed even to teachers. So this could either mean literally a 12,000 from each tribe, or it just could mean a group of 12s in large number. So it could be 12 guys from here and 12 from here and 12 from here, and they're all...
Could it be symbolic?
Symbolic, yep. It could just be groups of 12 in large number from Judah, groups of 12 in large number from Reuben, in that reading that way, through the symbolism of it. The important point is that Joseph's back on the list, and Dan and Ephraim have been removed in the end times. So next up is the multitude from the Great Tribulation, and this is the first of many places in the book of Revelation where the pre-trib rapture people, I hate that word. There is no rapture anywhere in the Bible. Yeah. There's a resurrection.
Yes.
And we should never refer to the resurrection as a rapture.
No.
It's completely wrong to do that. In fact, I would go so far as to say it's a form of mild heresy. But after these things I looked, and behold, a great multitude which no one could number, of all nations, tribes, peoples, and tongues, crying out, salvation belongs to our God. A great multitude. And then he goes on to say, one of the elders addressed me, John, who are these? And I, John, say, well, you know. And he goes, these are the ones who come out of the great tribulation or have gone through. If you come out of the house, you've been in it. Therefore, they are before the throne of God. So they have come through, gone out of, in any way, shape, or form. If you're an 8th grade reader, which is what the level of this Bible was designed to be able to comprehend, was an 8th grader, you would say, okay, these are people that were in it, but have come out of it. All right? So either they were supernaturally lifted out of it, which would mean what the classic rapture people, but it's happening during the tribulation. So right there, it's not pre-trib, it's mid-trib. They're in the middle of it, and they're taken out of it. So that wipes out the whole pre-trib idea. But is it a mid-trib rapture? Well, the problem with that is that all of the warnings about the end times say that those who endure through to the end. What is the end of things? Christ's return is. And that doesn't happen until chapter 19. So even though there might be periods within the Bible or within the book of Revelation where things jump to a side view or to a back view, flashback, the general trend is to go in a linear chronological manner. And chapter 19 is as far away from 7 as you can get. So there's only 22 chapters, and Christ returns in 19 at the resurrection. So this is another future view of what's going to happen at his return. That the people that have endured to the end, gone through the tribulation period, will be a special category. And we see that later on when the martyrs and those who have endured are given special honor. Think about it. If God is a just God, people who have been Christians 1,000 years ago, they've lived, they've had good, successful businesses, they've had great families, they've had a little struggle in their life, but in general, it was a good life. But God is asking one final generation to go through this great tribulation, but they will receive great honor for it. That makes more sense to me than any of these convoluted mid-trib, pre-trib. When you harmonize all of the Bible makes more sense. And that's nowhere as true as it is in the book of Revelation. And so that ends chapter 7, because at that point, he says that they will lead them, Christ will lead them to living waters, and God will wipe away every tear from their eye. And that's the end of the chapter.
Oh, it's beautiful afterwards. Heaven's beautiful. Thank you for watching. Write some comments, any questions, and give him a thumbs up and share with your friend. Thanks. See you next time.